Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat to amazing humans about their journeys through life. For these episodes, we're talking about neurodiversity, and I'm so happy to introduce Heidi Whitaker to the conversation. Welcome, Heidi.
Hi.
Hello, hello. So just going to get you to do a brief introduction to yourself, let people know a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm Heidi. I'm 26. I have ADHD. I work for a food company, but I'm also training to be a counsellor as well.
Amazing. So I think we've got the gist of what's going to come out in the conversation for this one.
Yeah, sorry, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, ADHD is the nature of this one, but it's brilliant. So thank you for joining me. Really appreciate it, Heidi. As I will for all my guests and for all these conversations, I always ask somebody to tell me a story. So I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit of a story about your journey and, of course, with ADHD.
Sure. So I mean, I guess I could start in childhood because it is something that has affected me my whole life. But I mean, my journey with ADHD properly kind of started when I was about 23. I was working, I was in a graduate scheme, I was doing a job that required a lot of processes and knowing when to bring people in and knowing having very unclear sort of tasks and stuff. And I really struggled with it. My mental health was really terrible. I had a really bad sort of few months. And through this time, I had a friend that I was also working with. We spoke a lot, and she obviously observed me through this time. And there was a day when I was just getting distracted by this bird feeder outside my window, and she was like, "Oh, you definitely have ADHD." Obviously, very stereotypical, but yeah, she kind of meant that not just because of that. She was kind of half joking, but she meant it. And I was like, "Oh, no, I don't. You're being silly." But then I started to research it a bit and looked at the symptoms, and I was like, "Oh yeah, no, I do. Yeah, I have that. Yeah, that's yeah, I deal with that, and the struggles that I'd been having, especially over the winter where I'd been working from home and not really having people explain things to me properly, struggling with focus and all this kind of stuff, and also just things throughout my life just all kind of started to make sense. So initially I thought, okay, well, yeah, I'll go to the doctor, but it's okay. I don't need medication. I don't need too much help. It's just nice to know. And then time went on, I was like, no, actually, like I'm really struggling. And at this point I was still working from home because it was during lockdowns, and I was just really, really struggling with my job. And I ended up getting a private diagnosis. My parents were able to support me with that. And because I just needed support. Like I felt like once I knew it was there, I couldn't ignore it. It's like there'd been this elephant in the room my whole life. And for so much of my life, I kind of saw the elephant in my peripheral, but I was like, it's not a big deal. And then one day I just looked at it and I was like, oh my God, this takes up so much room. This is really interrupting my room, and since after I saw it, I couldn't ignore the elephant anymore. And it started to get really annoying and make my life difficult. And so I had a diagnosis in August 2021. So I was 24. And I got 100% on that test. I got all the symptoms, every single one. Right. Which is funny because I went into that almost being scared, like what if it isn't ADHD, what if all the doubt, all of those sorts of things I think comes with this a lot. And yeah, I checked every box, so proud of that.
Perfect.
But yeah, I ended up getting some medication. The first medication I tried didn't work for me at all. And I was waiting for further support. So I applied for Access to Work, which is a government scheme that helps with people with disabilities in work. And again, during that winter, my mental health was just bad. I took more time off work. And yeah, I mean, winter's definitely like a harder time for me as well. But yeah, and then eventually I got some medication, and which has worked, and that helped so much with work. I could actually focus a lot of the day, which was so strange to me. I could do boring admin tasks, and I was like, wow, what's happening? And I got some coaching, and that helped a lot. And really sort of since then, and in the last sort of year or so, it's been a really big journey in understanding myself, kind of getting to know myself again, almost. Trying to take off the mask a bit, and also just learning to accept myself has been a really big part of it. And actually, to be honest, in getting to know myself more and dropping the mask, I also have found that I have a lot of autistic traits, and I don't have a diagnosis for autism, but actually the more and more I sort of researched it and looked into it, I do also think that I'm possibly on the spectrum. So that's kind of been a fun new layer recently. But yeah, I guess that sort of brings the journey up until now. Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
I'm absolutely intrigued and fascinated by what you've shared there, and you've shared so much in a very short space of time. And I guess that's the hyperactivity in the brain, sort of just going, "Yeah, right, I've got to get all
Trying to
this
get it all
stuff
in,
through."
yeah.
Yeah. So we'll take a little bit of time. We'll break it down a little bit,
Mhm.
because there's so many parts that I'd really love to explore with you. So if we can go back a little bit. So 24 years old, you're getting a diagnosis with ADHD, which is in August of 2021, as you've said. What about before? So let's go back a bit further if we can. So obviously you've been to school, you've been through college, university.
Mm.
How were things around those times for you?
So I mean, I kind of look at it in two different sides, like academically and socially, I think are sort of the biggest things where I can see it's affected my life a lot. I think the ADHD has definitely had a big effect academically. I'm very lucky that I have a very good long-term memory. And I used to think that I rested a lot. I used to think I was a bit lazy and I relied on it. And I now realize that it was actually like a big life raft for me. It actually like held me up. Because primary school, I think, is quite, it's quite easy. Obviously it feels easy now. I'm 26.
Yeah.
But it's everything's quite clear, quite obvious. They ask you direct questions, you know, you write short prose, or, you know, it's quite simple. So for somebody who maybe struggles to understand questions that aren't written very literally, that's not a problem because they're all quite literal. Getting into secondary school, homework, always a massive issue. That was the one thing at parents' evening. It was always, oh, you know, Heidi's really good in class, but doesn't do her homework or doesn't hand it in, blah, blah, blah. But I got away with it because I was engaged in class. I was quite intelligent. I did quite well. I actually really liked school. I liked the variety. I liked learning.
Right.
But yeah, and then my GCSEs, I underperformed by 1 grade in pretty much all of my GCSEs, like my predicted grades. Apart from maths, which again, very, very literal questions, aren't they? And then A-levels, first year of A-levels just absolutely tanked it, to be honest. A-levels is so hard. Like the amount of coursework I had, the way they want you to write things in such a specific way just did not work for me at all. So that was tough. And then at uni was okay, to be fair, because I think work was quite spread out. I didn't have loads and loads of contact hours, so it was quite manageable. And again, that memory kind of helped me when it came to doing things last minute. But I did tend to do things last minute. But I think the one thing that sticks out for me at university when it comes to ADHD is the fact that all of my friends, when it came to exams, my friends would be in the library for 12 hours revising, you know, cramming for weeks and weeks and weeks. I would probably revise for like a week. And when I say a week, I mean a few hours a day for a week.
Yeah.
And I genuinely convinced myself that I didn't know how to work hard. I really thought that I was lazy and that I just didn't know how to work hard. And I look back and I'm like, no, I just couldn't focus for long amounts of time. Like I couldn't sit and do something that is objectively kind of boring. And I was just very lucky that my memory could bring me through it. And then I guess socially, and I guess this is slightly more possibly on the autism side of things, I just never fit in. I just always felt a bit different. I never liked the same things that everyone else liked. Like I never loved Twilight. All my friends loved Twilight. Right. I describe it as, you know, when there's 3 people walking along a path that only has space for 2 people, I'm always the person who's walking around the back. You know, I'm always that's always me. And it's still a bit of that, but right. I never fully kind of fit in with people. And now the people who I am still close with are people who are also neurodivergent, or those are the people I'm still friends with. So I guess those were kind of some of the key signs.
Wow. It really fascinates me. I thank you for sharing those thoughts and those perspectives. How are you feeling? How are you feeling in those days where it was all, you know, you were trying, but maybe you weren't doing enough work, or what was going on sort of in the thoughts and feelings for you?
God, I'm trying to think back. I don't know. I mean, definitely like socially, like friendships are really hard. Like I definitely found I lost a lot of confidence, say, during secondary school. I think a lot of teenagers do, but where I really started to feel those differences and started to feel like I didn't fit in. And then in terms of like school and stuff, it kind of was just very demoralizing. It's very like, I can try as hard as I can. It's never going to quite show what I'm capable of. I felt like I'd never fully be able to reach my potential. And I just didn't really know, like say with A-levels, for example, I mean, I think A-levels are just horrible for anyone, but psychology, I'd studied psychology at university. I find it so interesting. And I really think my understanding of the subject was really good, but then I got like a C in my AS level and it just didn't reflect what I was capable of. And it's really kind of a horrible feeling. It's just, I don't know what else I could do. I just can't write in the way you want me to, you know, So yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, well, so it sounds like it is, especially because there was the unknown thing going on that sort of the elephant in the room, I guess, was what you determined it to be.
I think it's had a really big effect on my confidence and self-worth at times. I mean, actually, it's had a bit more effect, I think, since I've known at work, because I guess this time last year I was really struggling with self-worth because at that time I couldn't really separate myself from the ADHD, and I kind of just thought I just had this baggage that other people didn't have, and that I was always going to be held down by it, and that in a capitalistic society where, as a very black and white statement, your worth is your productivity. If I can't be as productive as other people, then how can I be worth the same as them? That's kind of the mindset I had at the time. And I knew that if somebody else had said that to me, I'd be like, don't be ridiculous. Like you're of course you're valuable, of course you're worthy. But it was really hard to get over. And eventually I looked at it. I ended up kind of looking at it as, actually, I'm somebody who has all these extra challenges and I'm still able to do what I'm doing. And isn't that kind of amazing that I've been that resilient and I've been able to overcome that? I've survived without help for so many years.
Yeah.
And when I started thinking of it like that, I was actually like, wow, I'm actually quite impressed with myself. Actually I've done really well. So it's kind of been a bit of a battle with self-worth and confidence, I guess, in that way. And it's not a linear journey. You don't just solved it and then you're fine. It's ongoing. But yeah, that's been kind of one of the biggest battles, I guess.
But you're walking with it now, rather than it's hidden. You can't see, you don't know what it is. And I've talked to some other people who have talked about that they can sort of compartmentalize that's ADHD, that's the typical sort of behaviors, and they can see the differences. So you able to sort of clearly see those differences. I know you take medication now, so that has to sort of change things a little bit, I guess.
I think in some ways yes, in other ways no, because it's so much a part of who I am, especially now that I've been able to kind of demask a bit and like really kind of get to know myself. It feels like it's just very much a part of who I am. I think it is in every part of my life. It doesn't define me, but it influences so much of who I am and how I interact with the world. So I find it hard to kind of separate me from it, because it's a part of me. Yeah.
But you can recognize an ADHD behavior though.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah.
That's exactly that, and that's where.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I know kind of which parts of my behavior, I guess, are driven by that.
Yeah.
And to us, it's just so much of my behavior because, it's so much is influenced by executive functioning, right? And that's kind of one of the key parts of it. But I mean, it's just been about learning to accept myself, and again, big journey, lots of journeys involved.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's what this is all about. It's all a journey.
Yeah, and it's to us, I think it's been kind of a bit of a gift in some ways, because I don't think other people learn to accept themselves or are forced to learn to accept themselves in a similar way. Because like once you kind of have a reason for the way you are and the why you do things, it's kind of easier to then accept it. I mean, for me anyway, I need to understand things to be able to accept them. Like I like to understand things. I need to, and now that I understand a lot of things, I can accept them. Like, so for example, eating has been quite a difficult thing since I started taking medication, because it can suppress my appetite. And so at lunchtime I have no appetite, and I don't really want to cook because I don't want any food, and deciding to cook in the middle of the working day or putting food together is really hard. So I could, stand there and be like, be upset with myself, like, you need to be eating a healthy meal, you should be doing this, why aren't you doing this, you failed, you're a terrible person, blah blah blah, whatever, all these things you tell yourself in your head. Or I can just say, you know what, it is what it is. I will try and have a snack. Maybe I'll have like a protein bar, or maybe I'll have a bagel with some cream cheese. Like, it's not the most healthy thing in the world, but like I'll eat something. Yeah. And by accepting myself rather than sort of being annoyed at myself for it, I still end up eating something, which is better than eating nothing, right?
Yep.
And there's lots of things like that. If you can just meet yourself where you are, although you're not doing the best thing, you can be doing a good thing. You can do the okay thing, and you don't always have to do the best thing, battling with those expectations and accepting and meeting yourself where you are, I think is really important for everybody, but especially when you're dealing with something that you don't actually have much control over, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. No, it's fascinating as well. And so you mentioned friends, you've got close friends, or your friends, whether they're close, a lot of them with their own neurodivergencies as well. How do you find, or how was the reaction? Let's talk about that moment when you found out that you did have ADHD. What was the sort of the reaction of those people closest to you? Was there surprise? Were they made sense?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people it made sense. Like once I explained to them what it was and they understood it as well, they're like, oh yeah, you do. Yeah, I see it. You know?
Right. Okay.
My
Yeah.
sibling, as a result of me being diagnosed with ADHD, my sibling also was diagnosed with ADHD and autism as well.
Okay.
So they were able to find that out about themselves. And they're non-binary, that's why I say they, and sibling. So that was kind of a really great thing that came out of it. And yeah, it's opened up a lot of discussions actually with friends who are also neurodivergent, or maybe do have a diagnosis or not. But no, most people were quite positive, quite receptive. People less close to me, some other people I had the odd, oh, you don't seem like you have ADHD, or like, oh, I never would have guessed, or like any of this. And I'm like,
Really?
well,
yeah,
you know, neither did I. So, you know,
yeah.
the whole you don't look like you have ADHD always, not necessarily in like a accusatory way. It's just always baffling to me. It's like, what does it look like? You know,
Draw
but
me
no,
a picture.
no, most people are kind of really understanding and supportive, and you know, it's been quite positive.
And from a workplace perspective, you know, we talked about work and some of the experiences working from home. You know, you mentioned it was been quite challenging, especially through the winter. You know, winter's not easy for you. What is it particularly that working from home creates for you when, you know, when we're dealing with sort of ADHD thoughts?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, being in an office, one of the things that is kind of motivates you in some way is that like you have people watching you. So if you're not working, people will see it. And so you kind of have this like, I don't know, motivation to work because you know you need to, you know, it's what you should be doing, and it's easier to do it. And also I think being in a different place for work, like that you can switch into work mode. It's like I can't work out at home either. I can't do exercise at home because it's not where my brain does exercise. I need to be at the hockey field, or I need to be in the gym. I think I really struggle with, or I really need places to be for things. So when I had to do work at home, it was like, well, this is where I relax. This is where I watch TV, whatever. But also at home, there's just so many more distractions. You know, I could just sit here and watch Netflix all day. I could go eat stuff in my fridge. I could play with my dog. I can't do that in the office, you know, and I don't do that now. But I mean, in lockdown, when I first started, it was really hard not to do those things. But I think with work and ADHD, one of the most interesting things for me has been the lack of support just readily available, I guess. So in my old workplace, everybody around me was really supportive and wanted to help in any way they can. But, you know, there was nobody there that was kind of there like, oh, you have ADHD? Oh, great. Here's this. You can use this. You can do this. You know, this is what support we can give you. It was, okay, you have ADHD. How can we help you? Right. It's like, well, how do I know that? I've only just found out about this thing. Like, I've only been working.
Give me a pay rise. Give me a pay rise, maybe.
Yeah, I need like, you know, £1 million, a yacht, whatever, you know, that's what I need. But everyone was very compassionate and ready to help, but nobody could tell me what they could give me or what support I might need. I had to find that out for myself, and that was really frustrating. Because if it feels like in workplaces now, you should have people that know about this stuff and that know what to give you. And obviously you don't want somebody saying, right, you need this, and shoving it in you and telling you what, but to have options and to have somebody that can help like guide you through that. You know, for where I was working, it was quite a big company, so it was like, why isn't this available, you know? It's quite surprising to me. I mean, now I'm sort of more in a place where I kind of do know what I need and I can go ask for that, so it's not been a problem so much where I am now. But yeah, that first sort of, it was just the blind leading the blind. Like I didn't know what I was doing. Nobody knew what I was doing, and I was just suffering because of it. And
that's fascinating. And I think it just proves the big point that workplaces just don't have the knowledge or the awareness or the infrastructure necessarily in place to, you know, and I think companies want to help, but I think that's the reality, isn't it? Like you say, but they're leaning on the person to say, well, what do you need? And we'll do what we can. And, you know, you need to prescribe it to us. But so many pieces. A big part of what we'll do in the future, no doubt, is looking at how workplaces engage and what they're doing with people, you know, with neurodiversity and so on. So much work to be done still, right? Can't solve it in 20 odd minutes of talking about it.
But I do definitely feel like things are going in the right direction. Like awareness is, I think over the last couple of years, awareness has just grown. I mean, amongst my kind of sphere, awareness has grown so much. And it seems really positive. So that's good to see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I hope we can continue on that. We have just a few minutes left of this conversation. You said something quite interesting in your opening at the beginning. You're training to become a counsellor.
Yes.
That intrigues me. So thinking about all of the ADHD pieces that we talked about, training to become a counsellor, where did that come from?
So I've always found people really interesting and understanding people. And honestly, this is part of one of the things that initially made me think I might be autistic. And I say that because anecdotally, a lot of people with autism spend time studying and trying to understand people because they don't inherently understand people. Right. So the way that I interact with people and the way that I know, I'm very good with communication now. I'm very good with empathizing with people and supporting people. And I think a lot of it is learned rather than kind of instinctively knowing how to do it. But yeah, so I've always found people really interesting. I studied psychology. I did a psychology degree, really loved it, really loved learning about all that. But I kind of just had it in my head a little bit that like, it's like when you're younger and you see doctors of like superheroes and you're like, oh my God, they're like a different species. Like I could never do that. You know, I kind of had it in my head that like, I kind of couldn't be a counselor because they were some kind of special person. And then during the pandemic, when I was sort of struggling with things and I was really struggling in my job, I was kind of thought, what really makes me happy? What fulfills me? And I realized that helping people was something that I've always found really fulfilling. And like, I'm always that friend who's, you know, people to go to for help and all that kind of stuff. Right. And so I was like, why have I not done that? You know, so I kind of just decided to dip my toe and I did this, it's a level 2 counselling skills course. And I think it's one of the things that it helps you grow a lot of your self-awareness. It's a big part of the course. I think it was actually one of the things that helped me find out I had ADHD. But yeah, and I took a break. I took a year out because of finding out about ADHD. I needed a year to kind of get my stuff together, you know. And then, yeah, I've continued with it this year. And I think, you know, at some point in the future, I think I'll move careers. I don't know when, how, but yeah, I find it so interesting. And I think it's something that I'm inherently kind of can do. But yeah.
That's good. Well, I wish you all the luck on that journey. You know, you're 26 years old. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. You know, there's a long journey ahead. You know, that's the thing, isn't it? And just whatever it is, whatever it looks like, however it works. But you're right. If you've got the, you know, that naturally sort of, or you've got those thoughts that that's something you want to move towards, then at some point in the future, no doubt that will happen. Right? There's a reason why the world turns the way it does sometimes. We are right at the end of this, Heidi. I'm going to pass it over to you in a moment. If you've got any final thoughts, any quotes that you love, or anything you want to share for people to inspire them to do more. But I just want to say a huge thank you to you, because I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to you talking about your journey and what, you know, you've revealed some things to me that I didn't even consider in the neurodiverse space. So I'm learning in all of these conversations, as I said to you earlier. But so over to you. So any final thoughts?
Also a lot of pressure. I don't know.
Lots of pressure.
So like, I don't know, on the ADHD front, I think in general, in terms of happiness in life, comparison is the thief of joy. That's one thing I live by. But, you know, trust yourself as well. If something feels wrong, if something feels different, investigate it, you know. And also, people who don't have autism or ADHD don't spend months and years researching it and doing all the tests and stuff. So if you're feeling like maybe it might be you, then speak to somebody, you know, reach out. The worst thing that can happen is they say you don't have ADHD. You know, it's not the end of the world. So, you know, that's what I'd say.
I love it. The worst thing that can happen is they say you don't have it.
Yeah.
The best thing can happen is they say you do have it. So it's
you go get all the support and so many questions are answered. And so go for it.
Oh, brilliant stuff. Heidi, thank you so much. Wish you all the very best with everything that you're doing, and you know, look after yourself, take care, and all the very best. And I hope to catch up with you soon.
Yeah.
Take care.